Hey everybody, it's Manosphere here. I'm doing a video today, and this is just something I decided to do because I was listening to some Manosphere stuff this morning, or actually afternoon now. And I just wanted to talk about like what got me into all that stuff, and I think I have before, but I want to go into more detail in this video. So just talk about what I was doing back when I got into some of the stuff like is the book over here, the game, all that kind of stuff. And that's not to say that I've succeeded by any means, but at the game, but obviously, but I will say I'd be far worse for the wear if not for it, and I'll explain that in this video too. So this might be a long one, I'm not sure. I have some succinct points in my head already that I can talk about, so I think I can explain this. So I like to do videos about this anyways, so I'm just going to say, like, I'm going to probably tread over some familiar territory, but I feel like doing this anyways. I have it more formulated than the previous videos I did on it, so I think I can talk about it, and I'm not afraid to be un-PC or offensive to certain people, even people that are from my past necessarily. So I'm just going to say flat out, for one, I have extreme social anxiety. It was no more apparent than yesterday when I was going to make this approach and I bailed out because the girl was just absolutely adorable, and I can almost do, like, at least to me, like she was a 10, and my friend pointed her out. He's like, Matt, and I was going to go make this approach. And these kinds of approaches where they're alone and, more attractive, and, I have to go alone, whereas like they're a group of people or just a girl walking down the street are still challenging to me. I'm working on this, this kind of like thing where I'm alone, because my friend got this stripper's number when he was at the park or whatever, like a couple weeks ago, but never mind, I'm not going to talk about that. Or my wingman, or whatever you want to call it. One of my wingmen. So, much younger stripper number, which is pretty interesting for him. Actually a milestone for him to some extent. I'm not saying strippers are high value as far as women or anybody is higher value than the other, for that matter, necessarily. But in the scene, the seduction community, that's a big deal. And it's kind of it's like kind of half self-parody to talk about it. It's like, oh, you got a stripper's number, you're a real player, man. It's kind of a joke. It was just kind of a, kind of half joke, half true, like a lot of stuff that I do. So, anyways, where did I leave off? So, growing up, it sucked. I didn't have a lot of girlfriends at all. I mean, I didn't get my first girlfriend until I was 24 years old. And that happened because of a setup. Now, there were situations where I knew that I could have, lost the V card or, had relationships and stuff, and I knew that would be the case, but I hesitated like I did yesterday, which will be less and less because I'm working on this. So, I hesitated, and I was very shy. I had a very, like, double life, because I've always had a double life. Like, I'm very not exhibitionist, I'm not going to say that, but like very much a performer, a musician, I'm trying to get into stand-up comedy. I have multiple podcasts, and I also, do a lot of things. Like, I used to yell at people, about corn nuts or something, but I wasn't able to be, intimately involved in a conversation with them as much as I could just yell shit, back in the day, back when I was a teenager. So I had a very hard time, but there were situations where I got really disappointed by things that happened, and, it was just always a struggle. Why did she go out with that guy that was a heroin addict asshole, that became this asshole? Why he was giving her piggyback rides, Concrete Park, and I couldn't. I remember all these situations where I couldn't get these girls and stuff, and it was really depressing. And then my friend swoops in and gets these girls that I like. So there was a girlfriend that I had that, way long time ago, and I don't want to denigrate her as a person, but I'm just going to say that in many ways she didn't take care of herself. And in many ways, each passing year, she got worse and worse, both physically and personality wise or mentally. So, but every year, once a year, she would come down to this, where I live. And a lot of times we'd have sex. Just be blunt. Wow, I can't believe I feel a little weird talking about this. This is really weird to talk about. But it was like, and I had this vision, like where you talked about being married if we didn't meet anybody by a certain age and all this stuff. But she didn't want to move down here anyways. She's like scared of even a medium-sized cities because where she grew up or whatever. Just all these problems, all these situational things. And one day, this is kind of what happened was I would talk to her a little bit here and there, and things would happen maybe once, maybe it wasn't even once a year. It was like once. It kind of dwindled down a little bit through the years, and this is like the only girl in my life I talked to her very occasionally, like once a year, or online on MySpace or whatever. This is a long time ago, obviously. I keep doing the fucking couch thing again. I'm gonna stop doing that. So she gets, well, after we break up, which I broke up with her, by the way, she, like, all of a sudden kind of had a makeover and started to look really, like, lost weight, looked really good. And this was, like, months after we broke up. And I got really depressed. I have, like, sort of seasonal depression sometimes. Less the last few, less the last 5 years than any time, because I don't know if it's like, I think black metal, like listening to it in the winter really helps me. It really balances me out. And then just like exercising more during the winter too sometimes. So that kind of gets me out of that. But just to be honest. So, I got really depressed and really beta around that point, which was like 6 months after we I dumped her or broke up or whatever. I can't remember the timeline exactly. This is a long time ago. So basically what happens is I go up there and have a date with her, and she's sort of seeing someone, but she's interested in hanging out as friends or whatever. And I bought her like a necklace, and I bought her dinner and all this stuff, this expensive necklace. I think about like when the pickup guys talk about like being like supplicating to a woman and all this stuff, and like being a total chump, like just buying them everything to get their attention or love. This is one of the only rare situations I've done that, but I feel really pathetic about this. It was really ridiculous. But she didn't respond to it. She didn't care. It was only like 3 or 4 years later, or like 3 years later, I believe, that she did like start to like me again for whatever reason. I was in a band and I had MySpace pictures, and she commented on them, and we started, we hooked up again, and it turned into total shit. Excuse me. It turned into total shit pretty quickly because I just was like, her personality just did not click with mine in a certain way. She was just too far gone in this, whatever the hell is wrong with her. I can't diagnose her. I'm not going to. And she was starting to look worse for the wear again, too. Unlike when we broke up, where she just kind of reinvigorated herself and started to look good. I mean, she looked actually fucking good for a while, wore a little makeup. She was like always anti-makeup and stuff, but like she wore a little makeup. She got her shit together more after we broke up. It kind of sounds if that sounds familiar, this is a lot of what happens when like guys get dumped. Like they'll go to the gym and all this stuff. It's kind of, if that sounds familiar, it's kind of the reverse roles there. So this is what happened to her. I realize that now talking about this. So I got really depressed about this whole situation. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Because it was just like, I was so frustrated because I wasn't, getting anywhere else. And I was living with a friend. Or no, I wasn't living with him at the time. Or was I? Yeah, I was. I was living with a friend who was pretty successful. And there was a girl I kind of liked. A mutual, a friend of a mutual friend. at the time. I mean, this is all dissolved at this point, but she was showing him interest this night. He was hosting a party. Well, that's pretty signal there if you know about it. Like if you host a party at your house, you're the man of the house, so you have like a higher value thing, with your life, anyways. So, and they do it and stuff, and this night for some reason it was just rubbing me the wrong way. This is like November of a certain year, which I'm not going to say, it's embarrassing, but many years ago actually now. And I had a nervous breakdown. Basically, I slammed doors. I was about to wreck stuff, and I was really jealous and depressed. So I went on a ride like at 6 a.m. for like 3 hours straight. I don't think I had to work. I don't know if I had to work that day or not. I think I did work the next day or that day or something like that. Maybe, I can't exactly remember. This is a long time ago. And I started typing stuff in about the ladder theory, which is this old internet like sort of meme about like how women like to date the badass biker, and then if you're, it's like this stupid, it's like more like proto incel kind of stuff. Like I knew about this like ladder theory, which is it's proto incel from back in the day. And then I found something about The Game, by Neil Strauss, and I read about it, and then I just went to the bookstore like that night or the night after. I'm like, wow, this sounds like the miracle I need, and I bought the book right away. I read all of it, and it took me years. I was pretty overweight, like even compared to now. Back then, I didn't look very good. I look better now than I did back then. Like things have kind of filled or balanced out a little bit, even with weight. It's hard to explain. I think when you get older, like your face shape, like you don't have that like baby face kind of thing, like as much. It like looks a little more chiseled, even with weight or whatever. So I mean, I'm just saying, it looked like total shit, and I really felt like shit. So it took like a couple of years, honestly, for me to make my first approaches, because I don't know what it was about everything. I mean, maybe that was that year I made like a couple, but like I didn't really know what to do with that. It kind of went well, actually, a couple of times. My other friend I told about all this stuff to, this other guy, he took a page out of a book. I could even show you the book. Like he literally read one page and he started applying this, and he got really successful really quickly. But I've been struggling with this, since, because I've been done it on and off and never consistently in the right way. So I will say that one of the things, so I'm just going to go into like some of the ideas that I probably had before I got into that stuff, and then how I feel about it now. I'm a little more in the middle about it now, because I was really like extreme about it years ago. And I would say that some of the success that I've had, at least partially, was because of reading that stuff. Because when I decided to commit to it, I would go all out, even if it was online. Like I used to believe in like going to, I would have never used a scripted email or something to send like thousands of messages, or before I read about this stuff. And I'm like, it's a numbers game, right? I used to believe growing up that I would meet like this magical thing would happen. I'd have a wife, and like the rest of my life would go well because I'd have a wife and this dream girl that I was a soulmate with. I've explained this in other videos about certain situations. And I really believed this, and it was like the first woman I would be, or one of the first women I'd be with. And I thought people that had a lot of sex with a lot of different partners were sleazy or molested, or had all these problems and stuff. And there's some truth to some of that, but like it just was really really dumb. And at the same time, I hated hair metal and like any kind of cock rock, because it was all about that, and I'm like, it's sexist and all this stuff. Like I wasn't really thinking about the sexism part. I was just like, it's so bad. You need sex with love. This is, one of my friends is still like this, and he's a virgin. But I used to believe all that stuff. So when I got into the game stuff, I was like, I decided, like, I saw the Matrix, I saw that these things happen. I saw that you can just, I've had casual relationships since, which I never would imagine that I would have ever had. But you know, situations that I've had that I haven't like, I never thought that I could just be like, you know, bang fuck buddies with someone. You know, I didn't think that could happen. There were situations where I was, and then they didn't feel the same. Or they didn't feel the same way, and then there was some situations where I felt more like I wanted more, and they didn't. Which happened, you know, once or yeah. I mean, even my last relationship, there was an initial communication that that's what it was going to be, but it kind of became, it just kind of went out of control, and I, you know, got kind of sucked into that whole thing. So it's something I never imagined that you can have with a person. A lot of people are hypocritical about it too. Like they frown upon people that do that, and then they do it themselves. Like I described in a previous video. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into that stuff. Like I just started reading about all this stuff, and it kind of got me into more new age stuff because like some of these guys are in all this new age shit and quackery, NLP, and all this stuff, and you know, the law of attraction, manifestation. You know, it kind of all coalesced into this whole thing because a lot of it kind of crosses these internet grifters. I'm just being flat out. You know, these multi-level marketer kind of guys are all into the same kind of stuff. They're all, you know, they're all kind of into that. But I like a lot of it anyways. I don't care. I'll admit that a lot of it's bullshit and a lot of it's a grift, but I like a lot of it. I can use the parts, like NLP says, use the parts that are good and then discard the stupid shit, right? That's one belief that I've always had about most things in life anyways. Like that was a belief I had before, like I changed in, you know, after there's post the game book and me, Matt, and there's pre the game book for sure. There's definitely a difference between how I was back then, but there's certain struggles and hurdles that I still have to get over. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. And I think once I'm over those hurdles, I think I will conquer those hurdles, but I have to be consistent. And that doesn't mean like I have to be like, it doesn't only mean like I have to approach 1,000 women or something like that. I'm not saying that, but it has to be like how my daily habits, my thoughts, my feelings about myself and the world have to all align with this mentality. And another thing is I accept more often than I did back in the day, because I'm, you know, older, failure. Like if I'm not perfect, I'm just saying, like if I'm not perfect at everything, like, oh yeah, I'm still pretty quiet at work, I'm still weird at work, but I went out at a bar and, you know, hooked up or whatever, you know, or, you know, if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm, you know, my girlfriend's 10 or whatever, you know, we want to call it. Yeah, I mean, there's some shallow superficiality with it, but the thing is that bothered me about that scene too, is that it was all about like hip hop, like loud clubs, like with like girls that like dress a certain way, like, you know, and that's not really my thing. Even now, after post game book, you know, my thing is still like the gothy kind of weird, kind of alternative, kind of, you know, somewhat freaky but somewhat normal girl. I mean, that's what I like, and that's still what I like. And now that's become more popular, I guess. Like that, they had that meme with the girl with the bangs, or they all look the same. This girl, it was on Facebook. I'd probably try to find it, but like, I'm so unique, it said, and like it was all the same looking kind of girl. And but I like that. You know, my ex was kind of like that. So like, you know, there's actually, in fact, that reminded me of my ex when I saw the fucking meme. The Generation Z or generation or millennial, or, you know, younger millennial kind of crowd, or millennial, yeah, younger millennial, because 93 is younger millennial, I guess, sort of like it'd be like a Generation X 75, you know, or something like that. They're not Generation Z, but they're not, you know, deep in the millennial thing of like late 80s, you know, so like birth date, I mean. So yeah, there's a lot of women that dress like that. I know there's even some Generation Xennials that I like, that I've liked the look of, you know. They kind of have that look too. So that the looks that I like actually have gained more popularity in recent years in some ways. You know, the looks that I don't know if just me changing with the times, or No, I don't think it is, because there's certain looks I hated even back then, and I hate now. So I don't know. What is it about looks? I don't know. I'm see the pickup scene gave me the excuse to be superficial more, and I'm not. Because, and I've kind of orientated it towards, I like what I like. So it's not like they have to be a 10 from Maxim magazine back in the day or something like that. They have to be a 10 to me, you know? And some 10s that I like, some guys are like, oh, you like her? Yeah. So my whole thing is to get my personal 10. That's my thing. That's what I want. It's not about what society says is like loud, pop, hip hop club, where they play the auto-tune music super loud, you dance, and that's not what I like, which is a lot of the pickup scenes about, like, oh man, we got these 10s, man. My whole thing's about that maybe somewhat quiet, girl reading a book on the corner, or on the stool, or on the bench, excuse me. Maybe that's probably what I want more than it. That's what I like more than anything, and being able to like communicate with them and get and stuff like that. But it's not like it's not necessarily that I want one girlfriend or something like that. I just want to be able to sustain a a consistent number that is not like these long gaps and all this stuff and all this bullshit. Like, be able to just like if I choose to be in a relationship, I can do that. If I choose to be casual, I choose to do that. But I don't have this like gap, this absence of opportunities or choices. That's the problem, and that's what I got into it about because going through those years of being totally alone, and women, a lot of women that are against all this stuff, they really can't imagine how bad it can get for a guy. Like, let's say your sex drive is way more. I'm not saying women's sex drive are less necessarily all the time, but I think on average it's maybe a little bit less or a little bit more complicated. Imagine having a high testosterone sex drive. Imagine having all these, neuroses, and all these issues with self-esteem or something as a man, and then you try a little bit, and then you're shot down, and then you just go back to your shell and your empty bed, night after night for years, sometimes decades. Women don't really understand that, because they have, even at the low end of the scale, they'll have guys, want them. The guys may be total scumbags or total, idiots or whatever, but they'll have guys, no matter what, they'll have a guy interested in them. And thankfully, I have experienced that too, where I don't like the girl that likes me. Of course, I know that, but it's still like a very frustrating situation. People don't really understand that. You watch your friends, get married and do all this stuff, and you're just, doing the same thing over and over again. It's not fun. It's not like fear of missing out necessarily. It's not fun to see, people take for granted a lot of things that, that are totally like, seem like big deals to people like me, or people that have had major problems in this area. It's not like I've had, like I said, it's frighteningly mediocre and not just like totally bad. Like, I'm not an incel, regardless of what Marie says on Facebook. But it's like it's like just the whole thing is very frustrating. It's very hard for people to imagine what it's like. Imagine how, especially like a lot of women just don't understand. They don't get it. They don't get it because they don't have that experience. I think women that actually are sub whatever, looks wise, they don't take care of themselves. Usually that's the major factor there. Nobody's that ugly. Like, most people don't look like Rocky Dennis, like, who are women. They just don't, they'll let they just don't want to look. They don't want to look. Oh, I don't want. I'm a feminist, so I don't want to look like a what a man wants me to be. You know, that was like the '60s, '70s version of that. But like, it's like they don't care about presenting themselves in a way that's attractive. Whatever society is does influence that, and it's a bad thing to some extent. But they don't care about themselves. They don't take care of themselves. They don't, they don't lose weight. They don't, try to be healthy in this way that, they don't want to be physical. And when they get older, things happen. Like I know men, or even a little bit older, some things happen to men that I know, of course. I'm going through some stuff myself too, but it's not as major, fortunately. But I'm gonna have to figure that out. But and because it's been going on for a little while, so I don't think it's anything really that bad. But I'm gonna figure it out because I want to solve it. So it's just like I don't think people can really fathom, normal people, normies. They can't fathom what it's like. So that's what attracts people to these types of ideas and these types of books, these types of movements. Now, I hate the modern movements because they just become so crass, and they've become so like dark in this way. Like, I'll give you an example. Like back in the day, you had David D'Angelo / Evan Pagan. That's his real name, Evan Pagan. He's like, oh yeah, traction's not a choice. Alpha, beta, blah blah blah. Some of it's bullshit, some of it isn't. Evolutionary biology and psychology are real sciences. Saying someone is them, they, them may not be really scientific. I'm sorry to say, but transgenderism is real, true. That's the truth. But all the other shit attached to whatever is going on, that could be called into question. I'm reading a book about that right now. So there's brain differences between men and women. There's not it's exaggerated by the patriarchal science. Blah, blah, blah. See, that's why I rebel against that stuff, because I'm into this scene that does depend on some of these sciences as a basis of their ideology. Now, that does not mean I believe everything that they say, or even have like I don't have a grasp on science. I'm not a scientist, and I don't really say that. I don't want to use science as an excuse. It's just about my frame of reality. And I have seen a lot of the stuff play out that the scene, as they call it, talks about. I've seen a lot of the stuff play out. That's that night that I got in, the night / day that I got into the game book was a perfect example. A guy has, dominance over his surroundings, so the woman's attracted to him, and, that's what happens. And then there's other reasons why she was attracted to him, too. But he never wanted to be serious with her and stuff. She got all bitter and shit, and my other friends stopped talking to him, even though he's a total hypocrite. Because one of my friends, one of my former friends, he was asking him to fool around with him before he got married and stuff. It was like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. I don't care if he ever sees this video, because he doesn't really talk to me. So, my friend who the guy that took that woman that I kind of liked, because he did that in high school too. But anyways, I don't care what he knows about these videos. Nobody, they don't watch these videos anyway, so I don't really care. But nobody watches my videos that I know. I don't know what, maybe it just kind of scares them or something. Like, I don't know. Like that I know, like that I've known that long, I should say. So that's how I got into the scene, the pickup stuff, and the Manosphere shit. And I still, I think you can approach it many various ways. Now, I've bought books that kind of debunk it to some extent, like this book, or at least study it from like other points of view, like this book called, what was it called? Seduction, somewhere up there by O'Neill. Let's see. So I bought like different books that study that stuff and try to debunk it to some extent. And I like to have both sides of the story. And then there's, Neil Strauss himself wrote the book The Truth, which was kind of like, I wouldn't say a debunking, but like his like repudiation of some of that stuff in a certain ways, about relationships. Like he always had these attachment style issues, so that's why he got into the pickup scene and all this stuff. It's just really interesting. That's what I got into that book, ironically enough, late in the relationship that I last had. I bought that book and, got into the attachment style stuff, and, that was kind of what happened with that. But, sometimes in life, there could be legitimate like concern, like, oh, this is what's causing this is what's doing this. Considering that I've always looked at that stuff, as of late, I'm like, why overanalyze stuff so much? Why not just do things that you want to do? Why do I have to look at like, well, my attachment style is avoidant, whatever, and that means I can't get into good relationships, so I shouldn't be pursuing a lot of women all at once because it's going to damage me more. I welcome the damage, you know. I welcome experience in life, even if I have to learn from my experiences. I welcome a little bit of. I'm fully aware that I've made some choices the last few years that have not been the smartest because I was like, oh fuck it, I'll just take a risk doing that, and I have suffered for that. I'll say there's been some things that I've done that I probably should not have pursued, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because there was consequences from that. But not really that bad of consequences when you really look at it, but it was something that I was like, just fuck it. Why look into why like always overanalyze things and say, oh well, see, this is kind of like my whole thing now. It's like I grew up with this like weird like liberal orthodoxy that said, oh, we gotta, I mean, this is good because the left in general is not, this is not the left today, unfortunately, a lot of the time. Like the left was about looking into the root causes of stuff and nuance and like, trying to prevent the things from happening in the first place. That was kind of the thing back in the day. Now it's not as much, but a lot of those thoughts, it's like, why like limit yourself by always having to have like some kind of specific, it's kind of like the material. Okay, I'll just give you an example. So I grew up like, material things are bad. You can't transcend. Like there was all this new age, like, and all these religions in the household, like different spirituality. It's not spiritual to own a lot of things those damn West Side yuppies have. It's so bad. It's like all brainwashed in me. Like, and then jealous thing. Like, oh, why do they have that? And they don't say. The person that says this doesn't say, and I don't. But they say, why do they have all that stuff? And sometimes sometimes when someone says that, it's not coming from some place of like, you're criticizing this person because, oh, they have all this stuff and it's wasteful or whatever. And you can't die with your toys or whatever, and it's not about that, but it's about like actual jealousy, sometimes. So I grew up with all this stuff and I'm just like, well, I grew up with all this stuff and why not at least for a while, entertain this other thought process, this other thought process that maybe material things are good, maybe making money is cool, just for a while, maybe not forever, but like just having different kinds of perspectives. Actually, that's part of magic, like Crowley said, as far as assuming different positions and perspectives is kind of part of magic, because I don't remember all the stuff about that, but like it's kind of like I've been rebelling against the rebellion of my childhood that I was confronted with, like, I mean, what's wrong with being with someone that's, I mean, this is like, let's just extrapolate this to like relationships. It's like, you shouldn't date this type of woman. You shouldn't date this type of woman. They're nuts. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, so maybe I'll date her for a couple of weeks and see if it goes really bad, and then I'll think, just like this types of things. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have this. So it's like at this point in my life, I'm just like, hey, I've at least like the last 5 years, I've just been taking more risks about that and just like not caring as much about what people think or what things are. I'm just like, I realize it's like a process that I'm going through. Like, I just don't give a shit, and I don't care that people might look down upon the idea that, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I just grew up with a lot of that stuff, like just being pounded into me, like all these ideas about relationships and politics, especially like, oh my God, the Republicans are all evil. Oh my God, they just want things for themselves. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And there might be some truth to some of this stuff, but like, I see the hypocrisy of a lot of those points of view. And that's what I don't like is hypocrisy. So I see it's like I'm going to talk about some of this other stuff that the left side or the good side does or thinks about, and people because people ignore it. Like my friend, he's like, "Well, I'm voting. I might volunteer for the governor's reelection campaign." And I'm like, I can't support the Democrats at all. I can't support the Republicans either, but the Democrats, oh my God. But he's just like, he'll ignore stuff about the Democrats that are just as bad about them as Trump and stuff. So even though he did vote third party because he didn't want to vote for Hillary like 2016. So I guess he's a little bit consistent about that. But, it's just these things, these little nuances that, it's like, I'm trying to think of a better way to put this, but like, the fact of the matter, it's not being a contrarian, but it's like, it's part of myself that I'm trying to come to terms with, like, a lot of these things that happened in my life and with my beliefs, and just like, it's better to confront these things and like try to like defy. Sometimes it's good to defy what you grew up with. Like when I read the Satanic Bible, I'll say that was like a big turning point too, as I've talked about. And I'm not a Satanist, but I like LaVey a lot, but like his character or whatever you want to call it, like his persona. But like, I'm not a Satanist, but like I that was a turning point for me because I was like a Christian, pseudo New Age Christian kind of thing at the time. Like I said, like, oh, sex. Well, I don't mind sex before marriage, but sex before a relationship, that's bad and wrong, and all these things. So I'm just like rebelling. Maybe it's the last 15 years plus, but like I've been rebelling, or more than that if you talk about LaVey. I've been rebelling against this stuff for a while. I like to rebel and take those beliefs and just try to, confront them and question them and kind of turn them around and see where I go. But this is just part of my life. It's just part of my development as a person. I don't know where it's going to land, of course, but this is just kind of how it is for me. It's like chaos magic or something. It's like these ideas are just kind of where I am right now. And I like to talk about these ideas and expose people to them. So I don't think there's like, and now we're talking about all this existentialist shit. It's like I don't know where the reality is in life or whatever, but I'm just trying to experiment and have fun while doing it, and I don't care. Some people might think what I do is wrong, or what I believe is wrong, what I talk about is wrong. That's fine. Like, what's this guy's name? I can't even remember the troll's name. He changed his name on his YouTube channel back. I blocked him because he was talking about me again on his channel or whatever. I'm just like, whatever, people will troll and stuff, and I hope they do. I wish there were more trolls because more people are watching, honestly. But, it's like, I have my own beliefs about stuff, and that's what it is. And it's not like, so we talk about the pickup thing, and it's not that I want to be some kind of player or some kind of guy that's just with a different woman every night. That's not what it is. But like I said, there is this, maybe it's just as flawed of an ideal as the whole image of like this one wife that I would, live happily ever after with that I had as a kid. It might be just as flawed, but the ideal is just like to be able to go out there and just do what I do. Like it will be anticlimactic too. Like to have that kind of choice that people have sometimes. I want more choice. That's a fact. I don't want to just I don't want to just settle into a relationship. I don't want to settle into, a situation that I don't like necessarily. I've even rebelled that in recent years, against that. Like my, certain relationships that I've had in recent years have been like, oh, well, I'm just going to do it anyways and just, whatever. And it's like, I realized at the time that I was, maybe compromising some of my values, but it's like, I'll do it. To rebel against that concept, because I like to rebel against concepts, like concepts in my own life that I will, that I want to defy. That's what I'm trying to say. Like even that concept of like, you can't settle, you just have to have these strict standards. That's part of the pickup scene too, to some extent, as far as relationships go. So, actual relationships, not just whatever. But yeah, that's how I kind of thought of these things in my head as far as what I really wanted to do with that, and that's why I, one particular relationship that I had where I was like, okay, well these red flags are there, but I'm just gonna do it anyways. Do I regret it? Yeah, to some extent, because I could have gone out there more and done more approaches and more online dates and stuff, and met someone eventually. But I just kind of hurried. I was kind of pushed into it. I kind of felt sorry too, a little bit of a little pity, but I did enjoy it because I did like the person. I still do like him a lot, like her a lot. So, I mean, it's one of those things. And the weird thing was I was very affected by the breakup more than I ever imagined in my life. Actually, it probably was one of the biggest, worst breakups I've had as far as my mental state from it. I didn't realize that it was kind of deceptively bizarre. But I'm not going to go and overanalyze and psychoanalyze why that happened. See, that's the whole point. Like, I'm the type of person that wants to psychoanalyze everything and overanalyze everything. And that's why I'm just trying to say fuck it more. And I think that goes for any person that's trying to like wanting to go, if they do too much of something to an extreme extent, doing the opposite, at least for a while, doing the total opposite, at least for a while, might shift them towards the middle. This is just my personal philosophy, towards a more middle, stable ground. So like, oh well, I got to do this and that. It's just like, it's just stupid. But anyways, I'm kind of blathering and starting to mumble, and I got other shit to do today. I was gonna get a tattoo today, but I decided I'm probably gonna wait because there's other stuff I have to do. You can't really see the disaster that's back. Well, it's in the kitchen, but it's like stuff like that. But that's about all. Peace out.